Friday, June 20th, 2025. Episode of Smackdown. Less brutal than usual, but still not great. The closing moments of John Cena's promo actually got everybody talking, which is good. Because one of the reasons people like WWE is the water cooler effect. It gives you something to talk about the next day and the day after. And that's what everybody wants. Boring wrestling doesn't allow for a lot of conversation or a lot of talking, which is why it dies on the vine, which is why people like angles and things like that more than actual matches. So let's talk about that. Let's start right there with John Cena's promo. We're going to build up to it, of course. John Cena was there all night, but only made one appearance, but he made that appearance really worth it. CM Punk was there all night, only made one appearance, and don't really feel that it was worth it, but whatever. But R-Truth was there, and he made multiple appearances. R-Truth attacked Kit Wilson of Pretty Deadly as he was about to have a match with Aleister Black. I was actually interested in this because having a tag team guy wrestle in a singles match, even though it's probably going to be a squash match, is something that has not happened that often in WWE in recent years. And it should happen more often, I think. Anyway, Ron Killings was backstage when Aleister Black approached him about this whole getting in his business thing, and Killings told him it wasn't personal. As the two of them were staring off, which made R-Truth look like Andre the Damn Giant. Well, he didn't look that big, but he looked much bigger than Aleister Black. Damian Priest showed up and decided to talk R-Truth down, tell him to focus all his anger and frustration on John Cena and his match tonight. So that's exactly what Ron Killings did. On the main event of the evening, Ron Killings wrestled John Cena. The match was actually going okay. R-Truth was aggressive, but he was working really light because, Big Match John is very fragile and is just trying to get through this thing so he can get back to his Hollywood business. So there were punches that were not making full contact, especially when he did the Luthez press. But R-Truth did a good job of making himself look strong here. John Cena, of course, is working heel, so he powdered a lot and then ended up hitting Truth with the belt, and that was it. The match was disqualified. It was thrown out. R-Truth then was getting his ass kicked, and CM Punk ran in there to make the save. Punk and Cena get into a fight. Cena kicks Punk in the nuts, hits him with the belt, then gives him the attitude adjustment through the table. And while Punk is writhing on the table, John Cena took a couple of minutes to have some words for CM Punk. And what they did was essentially a reverse pipe bomb, where Cena basically told Punk about himself. And I'm not going to go through this entire thing, but he called CM Punk a bullshitter, says that he's jealous of how CM Punk has been able to con people, and that they sing his song and they chant for him, but nobody actually believes in him, that he's not anti-TKO, he's Mr. TKO. He said that Punk has been doing the same thing for years, calling him promo potato salad. Jesus. Say he tweets strong, but his actions are weak. And then he called out Nick Namath, Matt Cardona, and Claudio Castagnoli as three guys for whom Punk stepped on his way to the top. And that is what got a lot of people's attention, because they were like, why didn't he mention the Young Bucks and Jack Perry? Why didn't he mention those guys? You don't want to give... Well, here's the thing. These promos are all about trust. Matches, wrestling, all this stuff is about trust. Cena doesn't know a lot about that situation over there, and plus you don't want to give those guys any sort of mainstream attention. That's the obvious reason why you don't mention them, right? But also, in order for Punk to lay there and let this happen, he has to understand that Cena's going to go places, but he's not going to go over the line, So that's right up to the line. But even more important is that it starts getting people talking. They're like, what did he do to Claudio? What did he do to Dolph? What did he do to Zack Ryder? Like, what did he do to these guys that Cena knows that we don't know? what's happening here? Cena's promo was actually very good. I liked how he did a parody of the pipe bomb. He didn't try to do a pipe bomb. He basically used Punk's words against him. And that was pretty much it. And it was done in a very silly John Cena way. But there were nuggets of truth in there. Him calling CM Punk a bullshitter. Talking about CM Punk being a con artist. About CM Punk being Mr. TKO. How he changes his values. He's gone back on his word all this time. All that stuff is true. You can't even deny that stuff. That stuff is factual information. And it's stuff that, the internet has been saying for years about CM Punk. And that it makes sense for him to bring that stuff up. But so you don't have to go over the line and mention Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks and all these guys. You don't have to mention them because you're mentioning all the other things that people have called him out for. So I did like the promo. I thought it was actually quite good. I took it for what it is. It's a parody. It's Cena showing that he could do what Punk can do. And they, of course, teased this earlier in the night with the vignette where they did the yin yang vignette. It's from the I Ching. I studied the yin yang. I'm not going to go too far into it, but essentially there's, positive and negatives, and then there's bits of negative and the positive and bits of positive and the negative and all that sort of stuff. And basically they're showing you that with this promo by having that these are two opposite forces, but they're similar in certain ways. And this promo was to highlight the negatives in both of them. How John Cena is usually the establishment guy, but in this particular point in time, he is not really involved with the establishment. He's actually trying to destroy the business. I don't know why. Nobody knows why, but he is. And CM Punk, who is usually the establishment guy, is fighting to quote unquote save wrestling, which is essentially save the WWE because it's the WWE championship that is at stake in their match. So, and of course going to Saudi Arabia, which everybody knows, like, oh my God, I can't believe he's going to make that trip. But this is the yin yang thing, where how they usually are. And then this is the dot in the middle of each one where they're really playing on that. And it's good. I thought the promo was good. If you look at it as a parody, it's good. It's a good parody. If you look at it from the perspective that he was trying to drop some kind of truth bomb and, break the fourth wall, it's like, I don't think so. Because a lot of the stuff that he said was stuff that we say all the time about CM Punk. The difference being is that it's John Cena saying it, and he's switching some of the words that Punk said to throw these things back at Punk. So now Punk has had to come back even stronger. And he's got to come back different. He can't just do the pipe bomb thing again. And I love that John Cena called it, he called his potato salad. Like it's the same thing every time. It's the same 5 ingredients. That was actually very good. I love that. Of course, everybody's going to spend most of their time talking about the name drops and the potential heat between the three guys. But from my individual research, the only thing I can tell you is that in 2011, CM Punk was allegedly one of the big boosters of Zack Ryder and wanted Zack Ryder to be in the main event. And, actually for him to get a shot. And that it was CM Punk that one that pushed for Zack Ryder to be the U.S. champion. This led to that absolutely disastrous rating on Monday Night Raw following that 6-man tag where it was Punk, Bryan, and Zack Ryder versus Alberto Del Rio, The Miz, and Dolph Ziggler. And it ended up doing very poorly in the ratings and all that sort of stuff. And I guess maybe at that point, Punk was like, hey, it's, but I don't know. That's the only thing I could think of when it comes to the relationship between Punk and Zack Ryder, because neither one of them has spoken on each other since then, to my knowledge. We know that Cesaro was supposed to be Punk's final opponent before he walked out. Cesaro talked about this, I believe, on a podcast, that he was supposed to wrestle Punk the night that he walked out of Monday Night Raw. I don't know if that's heat, but it's certainly a thing that happened. And then he actually did have words with Dolph Ziggler. Now, the Dolph Ziggler thing is actually pretty deep, considering they had words back in like 2015, where Dolph cut a promo and dissed Punk And then Punk responded. It wasn't like elaborate or anything like that. It was just kind of, the old guys with podcasts kind of thing that Ziggler did, and Punk responded to that. And then, of course, we know that Punk is being sued by Dolph Ziggler's brother, for his actions in AEW. Because Ryan Nemeth is also suing CM Punk. So that could be one of the reasons why Nick Nemeth's name came up. But we don't know what's going on between the two of them individually. We know they had matches together. They were good matches too. I remember their match at the Royal Rumble. I forget what year that was. Was it 2010? Maybe 2011 or something like that? Or maybe 2012. It was one or the other. But I remember really liking that match. But I don't know if there's like any personal heat beyond, Nick probably having an attitude about, Punk and his brother. Other than that, I can't tell you. So it ought to be interesting what stories fly out of this scenario, what rumors and innuendo is going to fly out of this. And that's the water cooler talk that I was talking about earlier. Is it gives people something to talk about. And we know all of these people work together. They were all in the company at the same time. But we don't know what Punk may or may not have done backstage to hinder the success of these men. When at the time, everybody saw Punk as being, the shining light on the hill, that he was a great guy. And then, of course, they found out later when he's running AEW that he's not always the nicest guy. So I'm very interested. But Punk didn't have any, well, he did have some authority, over Collision, but he really couldn't do anything to the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega or anything like that in AEW. But perhaps he had a little bit more stroke in WWE. We don't know. Let's get into the rest of the show, however. LA Knight came out. He got confronted by Paul Heyman. Heyman claims that he was an LA Knight fan, and that something bad's going to happen to him by the end of the night if he didn't leave. LA Knight calls Heyman a grifter and a leech, challenged Heyman to a fight, and then turned his back to give Heyman the first shot. Heyman left the ring instead, which was smart on his part. And then Bron Squared showed up, and they beat up LA Knight. LA Knight then saves himself by grabbing a chair and chasing Bron Squared off. Backstage, Bronson Reed is pacing back and forth, and Bron Breakker is there, and he's upset too. And Heyman is trying to talk to both of them, trying to console them. And then some interviewer walked in, and Bron Breakker literally starts barking at this man, like a rabid Rottweiler. Like, what is this? Who told him to do that? That's Red Rooster level shit. Who told him to do that? Please stop doing this. Okay? I say this with a smile on my face because it's silly, but please stop doing this. I don't want this guy barking, all right? I don't want this guy barking at people. That's not good. Please. I don't want this guy barking, all right? He can be the dog character, but please stop with the barking. Even Big Dog Roman didn't bark, all right? No barking. Please, put a collar on him or something. This is bad. Why is he on SmackDown anyway? Why are these people on SmackDown anyway? They're supposed to be Raw talent. Why are they on SmackDown? Why is Road Dogg having the ability to make Bron Breakker bark? Why? No. This should not be the case, man. He ain't never barked before, and all of a sudden he barking. This is ridiculous. This has got to be Road Dogg's fault. Whatever he was taking in the 90s, and I heard it was good shit back then, it fried his brain, completely scrambled him. Over easy. Sunny side up. It's no barking. No wrestler should be barking. Stop this. But it leads to the match later on, Bronson Reed versus LA Knight. LA Knight wins the match by disqualification because Bron Breakker attacked him and speared him. I guess that's what dogs do. The following beating was tremendous. They kicked LA Knight's ass and gave him 3 tsunamis. So I told you guys about this LA Knight thing, didn't I? Didn't I tell you that everybody got their hopeless mid-carder and LA Knight is one of the most hopeless of hopeless mid-carders? He's getting squashed by Bronson Reed. It's over, okay? He's done for. Now, he's in a feud with Seth Rollins now, apparently. maybe that'll work out for him. It ain't looking like it, because it looks like Seth Rollins is on track to be back in the championship picture. But at least it's something for LA Knight, but he's hopelessly stuck in the mid card. And now he's being crushed by big fat goobers like Bronson Reed and barking men. I don't know, man. It ain't looking good for your boy. Everybody who is trying to hold on and wave this LA Knight flag, I feel for you. I will say this, Seth Rollins' stable is not working out, and a lot of this is because of, obviously, the booking. These guys should feel like main event talents, but they feel like mid-carders, including Braun Breaker. They are just... Nobody that they're really involved with is a top guy. You know, and they let Punk do whatever he wants, essentially, despite the fact that they're feuding with Punk, allegedly. They don't seem to actually interact with him at all. They don't attack him. They don't beat him up. They don't do anything to Punk. He just kind of exists. And Punk is one of Seth Rollins' chief rivals, and they don't do anything to him. And he doesn't talk to them, and they don't talk to him. Everybody's very polite. I guess that you stay over here in your kennel, and Punk's able to do whatever he wants. I don't understand that. That doesn't make sense to me in terms of storytelling, but that's what they're doing. Next, let's talk about Queen and King of the Ring. Asuka defeated Alexa Bliss. This match was okay, but I certainly think it could have been better. The big finish came in. Well, for starters, most of these matches were eaten up by commercials. That's a big issue with SmackDown and Raw to a degree. WWF programming, this is why their pay-per-views are pretty much well received, but the TV is very boring and people hate it. Even if there is a match you want to see, 99% of the matches in commercials. Either they go to commercial or it's in a small box on the screen. That's unacceptable. As a capitalist, I say this. It's unacceptable. This stuff is visual poison. We have to have a break. We need commercials from the commercials. All right? We need a break from the commercial breaks. We can't constantly be in commercial. This is just ridiculous, okay? But Asuka defeated Alexa Bliss. Now the finish, which we were actually able to see, was Alexa Bliss going to the top rope. She was going to do the Twisted Bliss, and Asuka didn't move. But Alexa Bliss was kind of, she think that Asuka was full of shit, so she climbed down, only to be proven correct, and she got snatched into an armbar. Later on, she actually goes for the Twisted Bliss, just the second time, and Asuka counters it with the knees to the stomach. Asuka then gets up and does the Empress Impact as her new finisher, which is basically a running hit with the butt. Of all people who should be using their ass as a weapon, Asuka isn't one of them. You got Naomi, whose ass has got to be a lethal weapon, and she's not using her ass as her finisher. Well, she did. She used the rear view for a little while, and people thought it was racist and all this kind of stuff. But then you got beloved Jada Parker. She's using her hip, quote unquote, as a weapon. There's so many, like, everybody should just use their ass as a weapon. There's so many people running into the corners with the hip attacks and all this sort of stuff. This is just becoming a common thing. It's becoming like the DDT. Like, it used to be only big fat people would run into a corner and smash you in the corner. Samoans would do stuff like that. You would see Umaga do it, or Rikishi do it, or something like that. The Usos would do it. But now you got pretty much everybody hitting somebody in the face with their butt. And I don't know. I don't get it. What's up with this? Why is this a new trend now? Why is this a thing everybody's doing? Anyway, Asuka won the match with the Empress Impact. Jade Cargill is going to be wrestling Roxanne Perez in the next round on Raw, and the winner will wrestle Asuka. Jade Cargill said, and I quote, that Roxanne has potential, but this ain't a proving ground. This is a throne room. And she's going to, of course, thinks that she's going to win. And in my opinion, Jade Cargill should win the damn thing. If we're being honest, but it'll probably be Asuka, because now that I'm looking at it, I'm thinking Asuka, Io at SummerSlam, and that's probably where they're going to go with this, which is why they're not doing anything with Io on Raw. Is they're clearly waiting for this King and Queen of the Ring thing to clear up, and so Asuka can wrestle Io at SummerSlam. That seems to be what they're going with this. Now, there is a theme that is brewing, which led me to think that, okay, Asuka versus Io, because they're going to go with the sort of, I don't want to use the word mentor, mentee theme, but they're actually doing it with the men too, which is the only reason that it would explain what they got going on with Randy Orton, Cody, and Jey Uso, okay? So he did a promo earlier in the night where Cody came out to do nothing, and Jey Uso talked about the similarities between the two, that they've both been in the trenches and went from the trenches to the mountaintop, but only one of them can be the king of the ring, and they know that it's not personal. And Sami Zayn said he supported Jey on his rise. He supported Cody on his rise. Now it's his time. And Randy said, well, that's all unfortunate because you're about to get an RKO. And that's exactly what happened. Randy Orton defeated Sami Zayn in a pretty good match. That was, of course, you have to watch in a small box because it was mostly commercials. And I was surprised to see Sami Zayn lose here. Mainly because it seemed like Sami Zayn's story is that it's his time to be the world champion. And he's going to, go against all the odds, overcome all the odds, and fight for the world title, even if he doesn't win it. The King of the Ring seemed like a good vehicle to get there. But instead, they had him eat an RKO and lose the match. So now clearly they're setting up Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes. They're clearly setting that up at this point. So Cody versus Jey is happening on Raw. More than likely, Cody is going to win that match. And then they're going to have Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton in the finals at Night of Champions. Now, there's a big problem with this. There's a couple problems with this. For starters, I think the King of the Ring tournament being set up to culminate in Saudi Arabia could have been huge for Sami Zayn because he's a Muslim. Yes, he's of Syrian descent. They're of Saudi descent. But he is the most prominent and maybe even the only Muslim wrestler on the WWE roster. And to give him that moment in Saudi Arabia would have been big. He's already in the story and on track to wrestle Gunther. And it would have made perfect sense for it to be Sami Zayn versus Gunther at SummerSlam. Even if you have Gunther win the match, which would have been the right decision, giving Sami Zayn that main event credibility by winning the King of the Ring to get him to that point would have been great for his career. Because Sami Zayn is a guy, he's been Intercontinental Champion a bunch of times. He's been a Tag Team Champion a bunch of times. But he needed something that to go to the next level, right? And they didn't give him the Money in the Bank, which was the right decision because he's an underdog babyface. The King of the Ring would have been perfect for the underdog babyface to overcome the odds and get a shot at the title. Even if he does not win, it would have been a great way to put him in position for him to lose, fall short, and then he gets it another way. Now, we're pretty much guaranteed for Sami Zayn to either A, win the Royal Rumble, or B, win the Elimination Chamber. And I'm pretty sure he's going to win the Royal Rumble. I think the Royal Rumble next year is in Saudi Arabia. So, again, you had an opportunity to have him win King of the Ring in Saudi Arabia, and then have him win the Royal Rumble in Saudi Arabia, leading to, of course, wrestling for the title. They decided to not do that. For some reason, they decided to go with Randy Orton. Now, look, I love me some Randy Orton. Everybody knows this. But Randy didn't need to beat Sami Zayn. It just wasn't necessary. Now, here is my real issue. Isn't even that Sami Zayn lost. I mean, it's Sami Zayn. Who gives a shit? They are going to waste Cody Rhodes versus Randy Orton in a tournament match. Now, it wasn't that long ago, before John Cena turned heel, that everybody was, especially late last year in 2024, people had it in their mind, like, man, it would be a great story if, Cody Rhodes has been talking about how Randy Orton is his mentor and how he looked up to Randy and all this sort of stuff. Again, going with the theme of mentor, mentee, because they're going to do it with Asuka and Io. We already know that. They're doing it here with Orton and Cena. I mean Orton and Cena, but also Orton and Cody, right? To waste that match, to waste Randy Orton putting over Cody Rhodes in a face versus face tournament match, it feels like it's smacking me in the face. Because there is far more storytelling potential in Randy Orton turning heel on Cody Rhodes. The history of Cody and Orton, going all the way back to Legacy, with Cody being one of Randy's underlings, with Cody and Randy buddying up to each other when Cody returned. They have not had a match against each other in years, over a decade, I think. And you mean to tell me that we're going to get the first time they ever wrestle each other is going to be good guy versus good guy in a tournament? I hate that idea. It's terrible. Even if you want to say, well, this could add some spice to it later because, Cody is obviously going to win that match, and then it's going to frustrate Randy, and Randy's going to be even more interested in turning on Cody later. It's like, since when does Randy Orton need a motivation to turn heel on somebody? Like, that's part of the Randy Orton characters. He can't be trusted. Like, I would have preferred for them to win a tag team match, and then all of a sudden he gives Cody an RKO out of nowhere to surprise everybody and be like, oh shit. And then for him to say, look, you never outshine the master. And that's kind of where they're going with this. I can see that already. But why does it need to be a fucking tournament match? And then, even more so than that, I don't understand why Cody Rhodes has to be the king of the ring. I just don't understand. Like, all right, you want to rebuild him because he lost the belt at WrestleMania. Is that what the king of the ring is going to be? Is it going to be, this was what happened to Bret Hart in 1993, so Gunther has to rebuild himself by winning the king of the ring? Because he lost at WrestleMania the year before, and then he won the King of the Ring and won the title, right? So now they got to do the same thing with Cody. Cody lost at WrestleMania, so now he's going to win the King of the Ring to rehab his career and in order to get back in line for the title. If that's going to be the case, I'm not sure that's the best usage of the King of the Ring. It's a pure babyface thing. It's different from Money in the Bank. It's different from the Royal Rumble. Different from Elimination Chamber. But I don't think Cody needs to win the King of the Ring to get back in line to wrestle the world champion, whom he just pinned in a tag team match anyway. So why does Cody need to win the King of the Ring? And heavens to Betsy, let's not say something stupid like Jey Uso is going to win the King of the Ring. Because you might as well just burn the fucking thing at that point. You must not even have a tournament if Jey Uso is going to win it. And if Randy Orton wins it, I mean, that's just another thing that Randy Orton has won in a list of things Randy Orton won. I guess you could say the same thing about Asuka. Asuka has won the Royal Rumble, Money in the Bank, Elimination Chamber. She's won everything except Queen of the Ring. So if Asuka wins, then it's just another thing that Asuka won on top of all the things that Asuka won. Very weird situation to create in King and Queen of the Ring, but it almost guarantees that good, loyal, long-term hands are going to be the King and Queen of the Ring, and it's not any opportunity to take a chance, to take a risk. One of the booking things with Triple H is that he's too risk averse. If Vince liked to take chances and just say, fuck it, let's do this. And sometimes it worked. You take a guy, Stone Cold Steve Austin, who people don't really care that much about him. You care about him a little bit, but not a lot. And he wins the King of the Ring. He drops a hell of a promo, and now all of a sudden people care about him. 2 months prior, the people couldn't have given a fuck about Steve Austin. But once you give him the chance, all of a sudden, hey, it works out. But at the same time, you give the King of the Ring to Billy Gunn, and it flops. That's the risk and reward of something like the King of the Ring. And it's different from the Royal Rumble. It's different from Money in the Bank. Money in the Bank is something where you could take these risks too. Like, who cares if Baron Corbin wins the Money in the Bank? He doesn't cash in and he loses. Who gives a shit? It's an opportunity to give the guy a chance. This is not the Royal Rumble. The Royal Rumble is not where you take chances and you put Alberto Del Rio over, which Vince did. You put Sheamus over, or you put Jey Uso over. The Royal Rumble should be for people who are solid main event guys, or they could be long-term main event guys. But the King of the Ring is where you give people a chance. Is where you take a risk. And Triple H has been risk averse. The risk averse booking has been one of the worst things about Raw and SmackDown, because that's what makes it boring. So Randy Orton winning is a boring choice, but I understand it. I get it. I'm not upset at it. It's just weird. Anyway, Chelsea Green, Charlotte, and Alexa Bliss all have words backstage after Alexa loses. Chelsea made fun of Alexa for losing, and Charlotte says, hey, if you were in that match, I would have beat you and King of the Ring. So let's have that match. So we end up with Chelsea Green versus Charlotte. And Chelsea got off a lot in this match. I'm actually surprised that Charlotte gave her so much, considering Charlotte completely stuffed Tiffany Stratton so much at WrestleMania. But it was a simple babyface heel match, even though we're not sure how we're supposed to feel about Charlotte. Chelsea Green having outside interference really helped solidify her as the heel in the match. And Charlotte ends up winning with the figure 8. After the match, Alba Fire and Piper Niven assault Charlotte, but let's pause for a second, because Piper Niven, she did a body splash onto Charlotte while Charlotte was in the position for the figure 8. And it looked like Charlotte's legs had crumpled underneath her. I thought for a second that Charlotte was finished. I thought she was done for. I thought that knee was out again. Thankfully, it was fine. All right, thankfully, it was fine. But then Alexa Bliss, who was literally tiny, came out to save Charlotte. And I'm thinking to myself this entire time, Alexa should have a weapon of some kind, because she's very small. She's really small. And Piper Niven is a 300-pound linebacker. Why would she be afraid or concerned at all about Alexa Bliss? And similarly, why would Alba Fire, who is basically a willow tree, she's like tall and lanky, why would she be concerned about Alexa Bliss? Either way, Charlotte and Alexa run off Chelsea Green and her group. And then Alexa offers Charlotte her hand, and Charlotte refuses to take it. She's being hard to get. Okay, they're about to form a tag team here, and Charlotte is not quite that beaten down yet. She's not desperate yet. So they're going to continue, hopefully to continue this business with Chelsea Green and her team. And it gets Chelsea Green out of that U.S. title picture, which is great, and moves her on. I wish they would have saved Chelsea Green and Charlotte for maybe another time, but because I think that might be some more there between the two of them, especially with Chelsea Green, who is not a great wrestler but is a great character. You could draw out more with Charlotte, and it allows Charlotte to be as good as she is. It was interesting that I saw, of course, Rikishi said that Charlotte's not that great, which I thought was funny, because Charlotte's better than he ever was. That's for fucking sure. For Rikishi to say that Charlotte wasn't any good is crazy. It's like, she's better than you ever were, if we're being honest. And I'm not even really like a huge Charlotte booster, but get real. And then he said Nikita Lyons was great, but we already know that's just a gooning statement. Anybody who really loves Nikita Lyons like MagMongoSlade does, it's just a goon statement. It is what it is. I like looking at Nikita Lyons, but as a wrestler is concerned, she's kind of mid. But maybe he loves Nikita Lyons because Nikita Lyons reminds him of Nia Jax, who is tangentially in some way related to Rikishi. Speaking of Nia Jax, she claimed that Tiffany Stratton betrayed her. And then we got Tiffany Stratton and Nia Jax. They come out, they argue again. Tiffany tells Nia Jax to get over it. She beat Nia and cashed in on her. This thing should be over. I agree with that statement. And then Tiffany dropped the bomb that next week, Tiffany Stratton versus Nia Jax, last woman standing. And I wanted to throw my TV and set it on fire, because why on God's green earth is Nia Jax getting another title match? I already screamed about this, didn't I? I already got very upset about this, didn't I? I feel like it's coming all over again. I cannot believe Nia Jax is getting another title shot. I can't believe this. Maybe they like putting Nia Jax at Saudi Arabia because she's the one woman on the roster everybody wants completely covered up. Maybe that's it. You know, you have to put more material on. Oh yeah, Nia Jax, that's perfect. She wears an entire whole bodysuit anyway. Anyway, they fight, and Tiffany Stratton ends up getting sat on again. And Jesus Christ, Naomi runs out there to try to cash in the Money in the Bank, and Nia Jax stops her, keeps grabbing her by the leg and holding her off. So next week is almost, well, I don't want to say guaranteed, but it's probably a pretty good setup that Naomi's likely going to cash in the Money in the Bank on Tiffany after the last woman standing match with Nia Jax. Now, that's smart, and you know what? It's a great setup for Jade Cargill to win the Queen of the Ring tournament the next night. If Naomi wins the women's title next week on SmackDown, with a little bit of help from Nia Jax, who of course is going to beat Tiffany up, then Jade Cargill wins Queen of the Ring the next night. Then you got Naomi versus Jade at SummerSlam for the title. And I think that's a great setup. It's better than what else you got planned with either Io or Asuka, or whatever you might have dreamed up in your mind for Tiffany, even though there is nothing else. It's just this forever feud with Nia Jax. Naomi and Jade have a long-running storyline, putting them on a collision course for SummerSlam and something that's unavoidable. I like that. I like that idea. I think that idea works. But you got to get over this Nia Jax hump. Now, they did also announce that there's going to be a United States women's title match in Saudi Arabia, as well as Julia will be wrestling Zelina Vega. They put a social media post out where Julia basically said she didn't give a shit about the U.S. title and that it's just a stepping stone to her, which is amazing. That she would just completely shit all over the title. But it's crazy that they did not find some way to get Julia and Zelina on the show. You know, like they should be featured on the show. She's a champion. She should be on the show. But yeah, Julia should certainly win the title. So I think they probably should flip both women's titles next week. And Julia should absolutely win. I don't see any reason why Zelina should win. Put Zelina back in the chase position. Maybe if you do something with her, maybe she just needs to turn heel because the babyface character isn't working. But I love Julia. I think Julia would be a great United States champion. She's a work raider. It's a mid-card belt. Give her an opportunity to get over. But you have to give her some exposure. That's been a huge problem with new talent in WWE is you don't see them enough. You know, Julia is too new to the main roster to be basically invisible. It's the same thing with Aleister Black and Rusev and all these, you know, even... But now, they put a lot of emphasis on Stephanie Vaquera, which is why she's so over. But when it comes to Julia, she barely does anything. You got to give her more exposure. And maybe, hopefully, winning this title will give her some exposure. They also announced a tag team championship match next week. The Street Profits will wrestle the Wyatt Six. I'm not looking forward to that. Not looking forward to that at all. I promise you I'm not. But it tells you that these championships are not important enough because the tag team titles are never on pay-per-view. Never, ever, ever. You know, except for maybe it's the New Day or the Vikings or something. But the Street Profits have not been on a pay-per-view since they won the tag team titles. And there's no good reason why they are not. It's just they're not. They're TV guys. And that's how Triple H sees them. So, unfortunately, that's where they are. Now, the United States Championship, the men's version of the United States title, I think they actually did a really good angle on SmackDown. They had Solo Sikoa come out. He called out Jacob, said that he loves him, and he always wants to take care of his family and look after his family. Says that families fight and they argue and they forgive each other. And he wants to move forward with Jacob. And he says he's the only person who saw potential in Jacob. He came out there to Sacramento, recruited Jacob, changed the broke nigga life. And then he says that Jacob is all he got. And Jacob is all he needs. You're everything I need. Whatever. What a cornball. Jacob says that Solo has been using him to fight his battles and keep him as tribal chief. And that Solo's been acting different since that United States title came along. He says that this is the problem, that you need to fight me for it. He laid the title on the mat, basically daring Solo to do something about it. Solo tried to give him the Samoan spike, but Jacob caught the fist, and he was attacked from behind by JC Mateo. Mateo and Solo then proceed to beat up Jacob, who is saved by Jimmy Uso, who got a huge pop, by the way. So Jimmy is back in the picture. It seems like we're kind of roping back into some bloodline stuff here. But I think Solo's going to need his goons back. He's going to need the Tongans to return, because it's not looking very good. Jacob Fatu can handle these guys by himself. But it's nice that Jimmy is there. And Jimmy has been doing nothing. Jimmy has just been sort of present. You know, like he punches in, but you never actually see him work. You see him, he might have a match, but that's about it, you know. And so they're probably going to set up JC Mateo versus Jimmy Uso at some point. I think they probably have already done it, but they're probably going to set that up. But they set up Solo Sikoa versus Jacob Fatu. I believe that is going to be at Night of Champions for the United States title. I like that idea. Obviously, Jacob's got to go over. I don't see any reason why Solo should, unless this is going to be a longer running feud, and then maybe you have JC Mateo, Hikuleo, and the Tongans all surround Solo in order to keep the title on him while Jacob is in the chase position and his only help is Jimmy. That might be a good setup. It might actually be a good deal. But that would mean that Solo Sikoa is a champion in WWE. And it will also mean that the Tongans have to wrestle on WWE TV. And I'm not in favor of either one of those things, if we're being honest. I think the time for Solo Sikoa to be a champion is long past. When he was sort of the Samoan Punisher, that was probably when he should have been a champion. But now he's kind of, I call him Drewski, because that's essentially what he is. He's a comedy act. And there's even comedy in this promo with him saying that Jacob is all he ever wanted. It's all he ever needed. Whatever. All right, so that's SmackDown. I like the Jacob Solo segment. I like John Cena's promo at the end. The matches, the King and Queen of the Ring match, I wish it would not have been gobbled up by commercials. Same thing with Ron Killings versus John Cena. I think commercials did that match, did those matches no favors. But I think it was competently booked and put together. The only problems I have is I'm unsure what direction they're going in with the King and Queen of the Ring, which is good because, you don't want to be too predictable. At the same time, though, certain things make more sense than others, and they seem to do things that make less sense. There was no tag team touch tonight. They didn't do any tag team stuff on this show. Aleister Black feels aimless, like they got nothing planned for him. And if the plans for him to wrestle R-Truth, I don't know why you would even book that. How is that going to elevate? I guess it's just going to set up Aleister Black to be a heel, which might be for the best. But if he's going to be a heel, why isn't he wrestling top heel guys? I know I talked about all you LA Knight fans of how you guys need to give up, but where the fuck is Andrade? Where the fuck is Carmelo Hayes? There's people missing all over the place on this show. And I guess it makes sense because Cena is wrestling that you would have him eat up so much time. And of course, the King and Queen of the Ring matches need more time. But I don't think there's anything on this show that was non-essential. It's just a matter of, I'm not a huge fan of the LA Knight angle with Paul Heyman and the feud therein. It just feels like it diminishes everybody involved. Rollins and his group felt like they were supposed to be main event guys, but now they're just feuding with random mid-carders on both shows. And I'm not a huge fan of Nia Jax. If it was possible for somebody to get Nia Jax pregnant so she can go away, that would be nice. If you need a turkey baster because you can't find a man to find where her vagina is, then that's fine too, but she needs to go away for a while. We need to see less Nia Jax for a minute there, okay? Just a few minutes. With 3 hours, you should be able to showcase more talent than WWE actually does, but that's just them putting a lot of time into the matches and letting segments run along. But overall, I don't think, again, nothing was bad on this show. I don't think anything sucked ass on this show. So it was fine. Let me know what you guys think, and I'll talk to you good people later. Peace out.